solution.
Unity through
reparations.
Uhuru. Uhuru. My name is Liu, and I'm the local president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, as well as a member of the campaign to elect Eritha Akile Cainion for District 6 City Council and Jesse Nevel for mayor. We called this press conference today to express our outrage at the fact that yet another 3 Black children were murdered by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department yesterday. The same ones who murdered 3 African girls last year, Dominique Battle, Ashaunti Butler, and Laniyah Miller, with the complicity of the city of St. Petersburg and current Mayor Kriseman. We are deeply opposed to the murders of Dejarae Thomas, 16 years old, Jimmie Goshey, 14 years old, and Keontae Brown, 16 years old, and we send out our deepest condolences to the families of those boys. InPDUM is demanding Black community control of the police, the indictment of Sheriff Bob Gualitieri and his gang of murderers, and reparations to the families of those children murdered. First, I would like to introduce Eritha Akile Cainion, who will be the next candidate, the next District 6 City Councilwoman. So everyone, please welcome Eritha Akile Cainion.
Uhuru, and good morning. I'd first like to start this off by appreciating those who are standing with us today in light of this tragedy and in support of those who have been murdered. My name is Eritha Akile Cainion, candidate for District 6 City Council. And yes, you heard me correctly. What happened to Dejarae Thomas, Jimmie Goshey, and Keontae Brown on the early morning of August 6th in Palm Harbor was murder on behalf of the notorious killer Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. And I don't need white corporate media such as Tampa Bay Times to validate that for me. I know it was murder. I knew it when I first heard the reports, before they had even released the boys' information, when the famous Gualitieri slander machine was already in motion. The Sheriff's Department, along with the vicious, slanderous, despicable, offensive, oppressive, violence-inciting white media, were releasing criminal records before we even had the names of the victims. Bob Gualitieri held a press conference criminalizing those children based on no evidence. They were most likely responsible for this thing, that thing, and the other, without an ounce of proof. Why would the Sheriff's Department and the media immediately begin to pump out this type of information that serves to dehumanize and devalue the lives of 3 teenage Black boys? It's to cover up a crime committed on behalf of the Sheriff's Department. It's to garner support of a narrative that would serve to victimize criminals and criminalize the victims. The victims in the case being Dejarae, Jimmie, and Keontae. The victims being the other 3 boys that were also attacked on the morning of August 6th. I know it was murder because just last year, March 31st, 2016, Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies murdered by drowning 3 teenage Black girls, Dominique Battle, Laniyah Miller, and Ashaunti Butler. I am the international chair of the Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign, and this has been my work since before entering this election. And it was while chairing this campaign that I saw the exact same response from the Sheriff's Department and the media. I saw the slander of these girls, their parents, and the Black community at large. I saw the same stolen car line to justify the deaths of 3 Black teenagers. There were lies upon lies spewed from killer Bob Gualitieri, even then saying his deputies hadn't chased the girls, despite a cruiser being recorded at 93 miles per hour, and that his deputies did everything they could to save the girls, except leaked footage revealing no urgency and no rescuing on behalf of the 17 trained first responding deputies on the scene, just cynical conversation as the girls could be heard screaming for their lives. I say it's murder because of the social system. A country with a state apparatus built on the enslavement of African people and the genocide of indigenous people. The state in the form of the police, formed to maintain the system, the status quo of the oppression and the murders of the Black community, formed to protect the white community from the poor and colonized Black community. It's a system that myself for District 6 and Jesse Nevel for mayor are going up against, along with the tired people of this city. Because until a revolution happens, there will continue to be countless murders of Black children at the hands of the police. Without reparations to Black community, My community will continue to suffer the worst forms of oppression, from police murder to gentrification to poverty to homelessness. People keep asking in St. Petersburg, a majority white city, are we really ready for reparations to the Black community? Is this city really ready for a revolution? Not only are we ready, but we have no choice but to be. Should we be forced to be ready for Rick Box Cutter Baker or Rick Sewage Dumper Kriseman? Should we be forced to prepare ourselves for more of the pessimistic policies of police containment of the Black community, which leads to the murders of 14 and 16-year-old Black children? Hell no. We the people have to support reparations to the Black community. We have to support Black community control of the police, which includes the expulsion of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department out of St. Petersburg, because this is their legacy. We have to support the indictment of Sheriff Bob Gualitieri, a much-hated supervisor of serial killers, and those deputies involved in the murder of these 3 Black boys, as well as those who drowned Dominique, Laniyah, and Ashaunti. And we have to totally be against a Black mother having to bury her child, as something my fierce comrade and mother of Dominique Battle, Kunde Mamvita, had to do just last year. I am outraged at this murder, at the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, at the media, at this system. I am completely at my limit of the slander against my community, against my people who have had to bear the brunt of these murderous policies of the city government to ensure prosperous lives for the white community. I am sickened that 1 year later, Bob Gualitieri can murder 3 more Black teenagers and then paint the picture for the world to see them as less than human and deserving death because of an alleged stolen car. That even if it had been stolen, does not justify murder, does not justify illegally chasing them and leading them to their deaths. There's no car more valuable than someone's life. Yet there is this notion that property is supposed to be more valuable than a Black child. To assist in permeating that ideology is the Tampa Bay Times, it's Bay News 9, and other white media. This type of murder, this type of slander would not be possible if these children had been white. And it's never stolen if white people are the ones stealing. White people, you are on stolen land, living on stolen resources, based on stolen labor and stolen lives. And if you're a white teen stealing a car, then you're joyriding. Where is the Tampa Bay Times to indict the white community and to indict itself in the full participation of the oppression of the Black community? What happened in Palm Harbor happens in St. Petersburg. It happens in St. Louis. It happens in New York City, Baltimore, Cleveland, Detroit. It happens all across this country and across the globe, and the ruling class state always paints itself as the victim. It always justifies itself and goes along killing Black people with impunity. This is why what we do in the city of St. Petersburg is so important. People are watching this city because these campaigns are providing hope to those who have to see this sort of violence imposed upon their community every day by this system. We, the campaigns to elect myself for District 6 City Council and Jesse Nevel for Mayor of St. Petersburg, as well as the people of this movement, completely denounce the murders of Dejarae Thomas, Jimmie Goshey, and Keontae Brown by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, and are calling on all those who don't allow the system and its media to speak for you, who stand in solidarity with reparations and against police containment, to vote on August 29th for a future for Black children, the Black community, and the people of this city. We have to be outraged by this. We have to be completely intolerant of this. We have to demand reparations, Black community control of the police, and not one more Black life stolen by the state in the form of the police and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Radical change!
Radical solutions.
Radical change!
Radical solutions. Uhuru. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Comrade Iniko and Comrade Hekima, who are both young Africans and students of Gibbs High School. Uhuru.
Uhuru. My name is Hekima Ukimbizi, and I'm a 16-year-old student at Gibbs High School. Yesterday morning, I checked my social media like most teens do, and what I saw was my friends and my classmates mourning over the deaths of 3 young Black boys that were all around my age. And sadly, this is not something that my community and my age is not used to seeing. Before I even searched the news, I knew that the police would slander these 3 victims because that's what they do to African teenagers. That's what they do to African teenagers like myself, like Trayvon Martin, like Mike Brown, and like what they did to Tamir Rice when they killed him. They brought up his father's record to criminalize Tamir. We didn't even get 10 minutes to mourn before we heard them being slandered by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. The media and the barrage of hateful comments by the white community and the sector of the Black community that believes the police before the people. It's like adding salt to an already bleeding wound. As a Black teen in this community, I am part of the group that is being called criminals, that is being called thugs, gangsters, and etc. And my question is, why are these to be pointed when they should be pointed at the police? It's the police, it's the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department, Ashaunti, Butler, and Dominique Battle, and laugh while they drowned. It's the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department that smashed the head of unarmed Laborio Felton and covered it up. Not too long ago, it was the Pinellas County Sheriff's Corporal Sean Pappas that was found to have racist content on his phone, calling Black people monkeys, calling Black infants criminals, and saying that Black teens deserve to be killed. This is the history of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department that killed Dejarae, that killed Jimmie, and that killed Keontae yesterday. So I rebuke the labels that are put on us by the police and the media, because we are not thugs. It's you who's the thug, Gualitieri. It's you who is the thug, Howard Skaggs. And it's you who is the thug, Sean Pappas. And to all the people saying who raised these kids, my question is, who raised a bunch of adults that care more about stolen cars than stolen lives? And this is why I'm a volunteer with the Eritha, Akile, Cainion, and Jesse Nevel campaign. And this is also why I joined the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement, because I'm tired of being scared. And it is time for us, especially as this generation, as teens, to organize. And that's why when I go back to school this fall, I will be recruiting every Black teen I see. And we will teach them, touch one, touch one, touch one. Uhuru.
Uhuru. My name is Iniko, and I want to express my appreciation to the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement for putting on this press conference. Yesterday morning, I heard about this tragic murder of the 3 African boys who were murdered by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. Even within hours of the crash, I also heard that Bob Gualitieri began his slander campaign shortly after. He even had the audacity to also slander the African girls who were drowned by the Sheriff's Department just last year, calling the community's youth car thieves and criminals. Not only is this disgusting to disrespect the community mourning the loss of the 3 teens, but we have their murderers riding down our streets on a daily basis. This is a matter of lack of power and resources. This community has numerous contradictions, one being that police terror and brutality is not uncommon. It's sad that the most recognized car in this community is an undercover cop car. We hear the sounds of police car sirens and ambulances more than we hear the sounds of ice cream trucks. We see more police cars called to arrest someone at their home than we see our own family's cars show up to our homes for Sunday dinner. I say that to say that those boys died a death they should never have to have, but it's the most likely way they could have died. Only when we have power can we overturn this contradiction of police terror in our communities. Black community control of the police is the only solution to this problem. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Now, everyone, please welcome Lara, who is also a student at Gibbs High School, who stands in solidarity with the struggle for African people. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I'd like to begin by extending my condolences to the families of Keontae Brown, Dejarae Thomas, and Jimmie Goshey. I'm devastated that yet another mother has to bury her child. These mothers will not receive closure or justice. Instead, they will be threatened. The police department will attempt to silence them. The media will slander them and their deceased children. I'm angry that these 3 children, 14, and 16 years old will not be given the opportunity to live a life because the Pinellas County Police Department has yet again played executioner. When I learned of the death of these 3 teenagers, kids younger than me, I made the horrible mistake of reading some comments left on the news story. One comment reads, "I'm glad these teenage thugs have died." Another reads, "Justice has been served." There aren't words strong enough to articulate my anger, my outrage at a system that allows children to die, and then simply because they're Black, Bay News 9 and the Tampa Bay Times will cite their criminal backgrounds as the way to justify the actions of the police. They will libel them in a way that allows for the police to escape accountability. But mostly, I'm outraged at the quickness of people to criminalize these children. I'm outraged that a mother loses her child and people take to Facebook to blame her and praise murderous police. Because we all know if these kids were white, if they looked like me, the white community would wonder if I had a troubled past, if I had a good home life, if I was given equal opportunity growing up. But Keontae, Dejarae, and Jimmie, like Dominique, Ashaunti, and Laniyah, will be defamed. Any natural compassion for the well-being of kids will be shed. People will not wonder why this happened. They will only be glad it happened. I say this because it's time to stop acting as if though this has anything to do with crime. This is all a reflection of a society in which Black children are considered the most dangerous criminals among us, a point of view so thoroughly embedded in the collective conscious of the white community that police forces reside on elementary, middle, and high school campuses. White people have no right to demand submission from the Black community to the police. The police have shown time and time again that their only role in the Black community is to oppress and not protect. I am disgusted because the Black community should not have to defend these 3 children alone. We, as a society, must stand in solidarity with them. We must feel the same outrage, the same sadness, the same compassion for 3 teenage boys who died at the hands of the police department. If white people want to stop seeing this happen, we must elect leaders into office who are ready to combat the oppressive relationship between the police and the Black community. Eritha, Akile, Cainion running for District 6 City Council and Nevel running for mayor are the only candidates offering real solutions, which is reparations that come in the form of Black community control of the police, which is giving the Black community the ability to hire, fire, train, and discipline the police that reside within their neighborhoods. This is a system that must be implemented all over America because it is the only way to ensure true safety for Black children, and that starts here in St. Pete. This can no longer happen. I don't care if they steal a car. I don't care about their, quote, extensive criminal history. These streets cannot represent a battlefield where Black bodies fall for the sake of public safety. True change and justice will only come when Jesse and Akile are elected into office. White parents, envision your own children in these situations. Then vote for Jesse and Akile. We have no other choice. Thank you.
Touch all.
Touch what?
Touch all. Uhuru, thank you to the students of Gibbs High School. And everyone, please welcome Jesse Nevel, the next mayor of St. Petersburg, Florida. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you to Liu, Mantra Quieta, and the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement here in St. Petersburg. And thank you to everybody who has spoken before me, and especially to Eritha, Akile, Cainion for her courageous work, not only as a candidate for District 6 City Council, but as the leader of the Committee for Justice for the 3 Drowned Black Girls, Dominique Battle, Ashaunti Butler, and Laniyah Miller. I am a candidate for mayor because the murder which happened yesterday in Palm Harbor is not uncommon here in this city, in this county, or in this country. And that is why I am running on a platform that centers around reparations to the Black community. The murder of Dejarae Thomas, Jimmie Goshey, and Keontae Brown by the Sheriff's Department yesterday in Palm Harbor is another reason why reparations to the Black community is the only way we are ever going to move forward as a city. When looking at the coverage of what happened yesterday in Palm Harbor, it is impossible to deny the echoes of the March 31st, 2016 state-sanctioned lynching of Dominique, Ashaunti, and Laniyah by the murderous gang known as the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. 3 black teenagers in 2016. 3 black teenagers yesterday morning. In the case of the 3 girls, 15 and 16 years old. In the case of the 3 boys, as young as 14. In the case of the 3 girls, the weapon of choice was death by drowning. In the case of the 3 boys, the weapon of choice was death by fire. The role of the white media, without missing a beat, was identical in this case as it was in the grisly murder by drowning that these cold-blooded killers carried out last year. Within hours of their deaths, Gualitieri held a press conference, and before we even knew their names or saw their faces, we were told that these 3 teenage boys had, quote, extremely extensive criminal records, which we now find included things such as loitering, a leftover from the Jim Crow era that was used to criminalize the black community. Gualitieri, with the emotionless blank stare of a serial killer, uttered these words with full confidence that we, especially white people, would automatically accept his explanation. Without a shred of evidence, he informed us that every burglary committed in that area as of late was directly attributable to the 3 boys whose bodies had just hours earlier been dragged from a vehicle consumed in fire. And then, like clockwork, we get the stolen car line, the now familiar refrain of the Pinellas County Department of Sadists and its supplicant mouthpiece in the form of the Tampa Bay Times. Stolen car, stolen car. And we are supposed to nod our heads and go, well, good, I'm glad they could retrieve the car. Never mind the grieving families. Never mind trauma for a whole community. Never mind the fact that you can't charge dead people with crimes. Never mind the fact that car theft is not a capital offense. Never mind evidence. We're just supposed to go along with the underlying assumption of Gualitieri and the Tampa Bay Times that a car is more valuable than human life, as long as that life belonged to a black teenager. Because we know that if those boys had been white, the sheriff's department would have hell to pay. And we would not be hearing about their criminal records. We would be hearing about how lonely and troubled and depressed they were and how rough their childhoods were. Well, I am here as a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement and as a candidate for mayor, and therefore as an assumed spokesperson for this entire city, when I say that we reject this offensive double standard. And we don't care if they stole a whole car lot, because the black community are the victims of theft and murder. The Tampa Bay Times is not the voice of the people of this city, and the white nationalist vomit that comprises the comment section does not speak for us either. No vehicle, no private property is more valuable than human life. In the 1950s, as far as the law was concerned, and as far as the white media were concerned, to accuse a black teenager of whistling at a white woman was sufficient enough to brutally kidnap, mutilate, and murder him and discard his body into a river, like what they did to Emmett Till. Before the creation of the contemporary police state, the entity which played the role of the oppressive colonial enforcer of the oppression of black people were bands of vigilantes derived from the general white population. In other words, it was white people. It was regular white people who unleashed a virtual hurricane of violence against African people in this country for over 100 years to maintain our position on the pedestal of slavery and genocide, which nourished our children and guaranteed us a future. The vigilante white lynch mob of the early 1900s has been replaced by a more official organization. It has been replaced by the police. It has been replaced by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. And as a white person and as a candidate to become our next mayor, I have a responsibility to declare my disunity with the state-sanctioned lynchings of black youth and to express my outrage and my fury. And any other candidate for mayor, including the current mayor, Rick Kriseman, and the former mayor, Rick Baker, who stay quiet on this matter, are exposing themselves as conspirators in Gualtieri's rampage of terror against black children, and that's exactly what they are. We cannot move forward as a city and claim to be a progressive city until we address and resolve the rotten core of our social system, which is the oppression of the black community. We must embrace an optimistic policy of reparations against a pessimistic policy of police containment and murder. That is the only way forward. Black community control of the police makes sense. The right of the Black community to hire, fire, train, and discipline the police who operate in their communities. We need to bring back the policy that was once in effect years ago in this city after the heroic rebellions of 1996, which prohibited the Sheriff's Department from operating within the city limits of St. Petersburg, resulting in an unprecedented 8-year stretch where not a single Black person was murdered by the police. It was Rick Baker who got rid of that policy. We must bring that policy back. We want the Sheriff's Department to get the hell out of St. Petersburg. We will not allow them to continue killing Black children with impunity in our city. Finally, as mayor, I will do everything in my power to ensure that Bob Gualitieri, Howard Skaggs, and the other deputies involved in these murders are fired and then arrested, prosecuted, and jailed. These are murderers. These are killers who prey on children. And there will be a change of management in city government after this election. And unlike Kriseman and Foster and Baker before him, we will have a zero-tolerance policy for cold-blooded murderers marauding the streets of our city, preying on Black children and teenagers. So we're putting you on notice, Gualitieri. Your days as a free man are numbered. You will experience a measure of the pain that you have caused to so many Black families, and you cannot count on the absolute complicity of the white population any longer, because we are uniting with the Black community. We are uniting through reparations, justice and reparations for the families of Dejarae Thomas, Jimmie Goshey, Keontae Brown, Dominique Battle, Ashaunti Butler, Laniyah Miller, Javon Dawson, Markel McCullough, Jarrell Walker, Alton Wichard, Tyrone Lewis, and reparations to the entire Black community. Thank you.
Reparations. Radical solutions. Radical solutions. Uhuru. Uhuru. Thank you to the candidates, and everyone, please join me in welcoming Penny Hess, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and also the campaign leader of Jesse Nevel. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I want to salute Liu Mancho Quayera of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, as well as candidates Eritha Akile Cainion for District 6 City Council, Jesse Nevel for mayor, and for these incredible young people who have made this very moving and powerful statements today. My name is Penny Hess. I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee. And from the African People's Solidarity Committee, we join in expressing our deepest outrage at the brutal murders of yet 3 more Black children as young as 14 years old by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. I want to say that the African People's Solidarity Committee is the organization of white people that was formed by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the African People's Socialist Party, and the Uhuru movement. We work under the leadership of the organized interest of the African working class, with the understanding that this system, as has been said, is built on the enslavement of African people, the theft of African human beings and turning them into commodities, working them to death for hundreds of years, and on genocide against African people, indigenous people, and wars of occupation around the world. And this is what has given the white population the ability to have resources, to have even the experience of democracy in this country, and to sit on the backs of everybody else on the planet. And I want to say that I am very sickened by the editorial in the Tampa Bay Times today that was titled, "Community Must Come Together to Stop Car Thefts." No. The community must come together to stop the murders of young African people. And I want to remind the Tampa Bay Times, removing children from the group is one of the definitions of genocide by the United Nations. So from the African People's Solidarity Committee, we are outraged by the murders of Dejarae Thomas, 16, Jimmie Goshey, 14, and Keontae Brown, 16. And we send our deepest condolences to their families and to the Black community. The African People's Solidarity Committee exists in cities throughout this country, and we denounce these ongoing murders and criminalization of Black children with impunity by the Sheriff's Department, with the complicity of the Tampa Bay Times and the city of St. Petersburg and Mayor Kriseman. We are opposed to the justification of murder of children based on allegations that they have stolen a car, and the cynical notion that puts the value of property over the value of lives of human beings, especially children, because they are Black. And this is the kind of murder by police and Sheriff's Department that we see all over the country, but there's something really vicious about what takes place in Pinellas County. This murder that blames the victims in such a deep way. This would never happen to white children. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Have you ever seen an example any place in the country where white children were murdered in this way and blamed, and the white community was slandered in the way that this is happening today? I know that Gualitieri has 3 teenage daughters. Can you imagine if his daughters were in those cars? So this scenario plays out over and over again, not only in the murders of Black children, but in the criminalization of the parents and the entire Black community. Bob Gualitieri, as has been said, is a murderer. He's a serial killer of multiple Black children, including Dominique Battle, daughter of Kunde Mwamvita, along with Ashaunti Butler and Laniyah Miller last year here in St. Petersburg with, the complicity of the police department, the Sheriff's Department, and Mayor Kriseman, and the Tampa Bay Times. Gualitieri must be arrested. He must go to prison, if not the death penalty, for his murders, slander, and lies. And Gualitieri, as has been said, accused these children of things that they cannot defend themselves from because they are dead. And he said there was no chase, just as he did with the 3 drowned girls. The same thing that he said before when, in fact, there was a high-speed chase, so we know he lies, that those girls last year were pursued by 12 cop cars and a helicopter who cynically stood by, even though they are first responders prepared to rescue, according to TV, anybody that's in danger. They're supposed to move towards danger. They stood by and cynically watched them die as they issued profanity in support of that. So the fact is that what we're seeing is a vicious criminalization of poverty, criminalization of children in a system that's parasitic, that imposes nothing but joblessness, the school to prison pipeline, police in schools, police murders of Black youth every 18 hours in this country, and gentrification of their whole communities for the benefit of the white community. And Gualitieri can make these statements because he expects unity from the white community. And we are here to say, those of us who are here in solidarity with the right of African people to have control over their lives and to have the reparations that are owed to them, that Gualitieri does not speak for us. He does not speak in our name, and I know that there are thousands of other white people out there in St. Petersburg, even in Pinellas County, who join with us and unite with that statement that we stand for the right of the African community to have freedom, to have liberation, to have justice, and that reparations is owed. So that we say that reparations and economic development must be given to the Black community control of police, Black community control of schools, We stand with the campaigns of Akile Cainion for District 6, Jesse Nevel for mayor, and the slogan calling for unity in this city through reparations to the Black community. Gualitieri must go. He must be prosecuted as a menace to society for his crimes against humanity. Unity through reparations to the Black community. Vote August 29th for Eritha Akile Cainion for District 6 City Council and Jesse Nevel for Mayor. Uhuru.
Thank you, Penny. Last, please welcome James McLynas, a former candidate for Sheriff of Pinellas County. Uhuru.
My name is James McLynas. I'm not only a former candidate for sheriff, I'm also a future candidate for sheriff. I'm running for sheriff in 2020. Yeah! The reason I'm here today is because I would like to address something that has not been addressed in the media or has not been brought to light so far in all of these cases. And that is the Sheriff of Pinellas County, Robert Gualtieri's chase policies. Sheriff Robert Gualitieri has two chase policies. He has his public policy, and that policy specifically states that we do not chase for property crimes, period. All property crimes, including car theft, meaning they have determined, based on community pressure, that they are no longer allowed to chase people wildly through the streets in their own private game of Grand Theft Auto, because the community got sick and tired of people being killed and injured and maimed, not only the criminals, but the innocent victims as well. I'd like to point out that the chase policy of not chasing based on property crimes is specifically stated to not be chasing criminals. The police don't chase supposedly innocent people, so this chase policy is specifically put in place to not chase people who they assume already are criminals, because they don't have the right to kill them even if they are suspects in a crime. When they implemented that policy, the sheriff's deputies and the sheriff himself figured that this was a hamstringing of their efforts to rid the community of criminals. So Sheriff Gualitieri implemented a second chase policy. I call that the secret chase policy, the ones that he does not discuss. In my investigation of Pinellas County Sheriff corruption over the last 7 years, I've uncovered numerous cases where Sheriff Gualtieri's department has implemented this secret chase policy. The way the secret chase policy works, it's very simple. The first chase policy starts. After 45 seconds, they call off the chase, just like the first public chase policy is stated. After that, after the official chase is called off on the radio, these same deputies then call their other buddies. They call the Wolf Pack. They call Howard Skaggs's unit. And what happens is they converge on an area just like as if you stuck your finger in an anthill. They come out of the ground from everywhere and they saturate the area. They identify the car, they follow the car, and then what they don't do is they don't turn on their emergency lights. They do this on purpose because the Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies' cars have systems within them that monitor whether or not their emergency lights were put on. If their emergency lights are turned on, they're automatically considered to be in a chase. So in order to not violate the first public chase policy, the secret chase policy has them not turning on their emergency lights, so that the people that are being chased, including Laboriel Felton, including Laniyah, Ashaunti, and her friend, and these three gentlemen back here, they don't have an idea that the police are behind them because there are no blue lights flashing. Because there are no blue lights flashing, these people don't really have any obligation to pull over. And what these officers do instead is they chase and menace and act like this is a road rage incident. They ride their bumpers, they push their cars, they get right behind them like we have videotape of Howard Skaggs doing to those girls, a car length behind their vehicle, 35 miles an hour down a cart path without his emergency lights on until they drove off the end of that cart path into the pond that Howard Skaggs knew was there. Howard Skaggs also killed Laboriel Felton back in 2002 in the exact same way, using the exact same chase policies. These policies are not just a fabrication in my mind. I have the records, the police accounts. I have the audio tapes. I have the calls going back and forth between these deputies of how they orchestrate this. And just like what happened in Laboriel Felton case, just like the case with the 3 drowned girls, this exact same thing happened in Pinellas County the other night. What I'd like the media to do is to stop ignoring the facts of these cases and ask Sheriff Gualitieri more questions about his secret chase policy. Another thing that I've uncovered is that this chase policy seems to only be applied to Black teenagers, Black criminals. We have a situation here where that secret chase policy has now resulted in the deaths of 7 Black teenagers that I'm aware of. And that's not an anomaly. That's not a blip in the stats. I don't know of any other city, I don't know of any other state, I don't know of any other police department that has a history of killing 7 Black children using a secret chase policy like we have here in Pinellas County. I have a 14-year-old daughter. I brought her with me here today. And I think about what she would be like, even if she was behind the wheel of a stolen car, being chased by a group of police officers, trained drivers, trained aggressive drivers, following her and chasing her without their blue lights on until she got into an accident. But it doesn't happen to white children. I have not seen a single case where they've used a secret chase policy on white children in Pinellas County. This has to stop. This has to stop now. And I'm hoping that finally, for once, the media will start asking the hard questions about why were these officers chasing these people? Weren't they really chasing them, Sheriff Gualitieri? Are you claiming that they're not chasing them just because they didn't turn their lights on? Is that what you're claiming? In this particular case, the deputy said that that car that crashed was going 100 miles per hour. My question is, how did he know that unless he was there to witness it? How did he know that unless he was behind that car, pushing that car to 100 miles an hour? He was there, and the records will show that he was there. The CAD reports will show that he was there. And if Sheriff Gualitieri doesn't make videotape and dash cam camera disappear like he did in all the other cases, we'll be able to see that he was there. Thank you.
That concludes all of the people who are scheduled to speak in this press conference. I'd like to thank and appreciate all the people here who have spoken and all the people for coming out to this press conference. And now we'll be taking any questions from the media that will be fielded by Penny Hess and taken by Ghazi and the candidates. Uhuru. So do we have any questions from the media?
Are there any questions?
I'm Tony from Black Power 96. My question is, has there been any statements made by the survivors or families of the victims?
Akile, do you want to address that?
Well, there were, I haven't heard any other statements. There was one statement of, I believe it was not the father of Keontae Brown, but of Keontae Brown's brother. And it was an indictment of the Black teenager because he was in custody and they were in the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. They released him from police custody. And then the father then indicted his own child in the media, saying that, his child was a bad child and they should have, been harder on him and all these different kinds of things. And this kind of indictment doesn't come when it's to white children. And this type of indictment doesn't, it's only the slander created in this narrative created by the media. And then, the pressure on the Black community to then denounce our own children, it's forced from the media and the police and everything to denounce our own community, to denounce our own youth. And because of the fact that they criminalize and they dehumanize us as a people, and in turn, then we see an African father denouncing and indicting his own child for everybody to see. And that's never the case when it comes to white children. There will be never a white mother or father in regards to their white child who stole a car saying, my child, was horrible as a child. They should have been charged harder. They should have been kept in prison. No, the story would be, my child was troubled. They're going through something right now. And this type of self-indictment only comes as a result of the social system and the fact that we're expected to do this because there's nobody behind us when our children are murdered. It's just slander after slander, article after article about how our children are horrible. This is the type of response we get. So we are expected as a Black community to denounce our own children, but we're saying we're not denouncing our children. We don't care what those kids did that night. The fact is we stand behind those children 100%, and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department is completely responsible for the murders of Keontae, Jimmie, and Dejarae.
Do we have any other questions? All right. Oh.
Alisa from the Brandon Sphere. Will there be any efforts to, outside of this press conference, to combat the line that's been put out towards these 3 young African children, like to deal with the 3 African girls?
I think I know that the most powerful and dynamic thing that the city of St. Petersburg can do is to go out on August 29th and vote for the only 2 candidates that are fighting for these children and the other children that are murdered by these murdering pigs. That's what we have to do. And I just want to say that Eritha Akile Cainion is also the chair for Justice for the 3 John Black girls and has been leading this fight for over a year now, fighting against slander campaigns like this, fighting against these murderer cops like this, and fighting against this horrific media that continuously attacks African children. And the Uhuru movement has a long history, 50 years plus history, of defending the Black community and will defend these 3 Black children as well. Uhuru.
Go ahead.
How will Black community control and police stop these kinds of tragedies?
Uhuru, so Black community control of the police, as it's been stated, is the ability for the Black community to hire, fire, train, and discipline the police that should function within our community. And the whole concept of Black community control of the police is, not to function within the same type of relationship that the police function as now, as a military occupying force. And it comes as a result of deconstructing the entire police relationship altogether that we have talked about, which is served to protect the interests of the white community at the expense of the Black community, because the white community has what it has as a result of the theft and exploitation of the Black community. And that's when the police become necessary within a community, because you have to protect that relationship. And that's the same type of function that the same police function as the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department function in that way. So Black community control of the police means, 1, deconstructing that entire military occupying relationship. And it means the Black community has the ability, the power in our own hands to hire, fire, and train those who should function in our community as police, who have the job then to really protect and serve the Black community. And that means that those who should function as the police are members of that community because they have a stake in what happens to that community. And you will drastically reduce police murder in the city, because the Black community will then be holding these people accountable to the community and to our children. And the police can't go and just, run wild in the streets with their police cars and their guns on these school campuses and, continuously murder our children without impunity. They actually have to be held accountable, and the Black community will actually have power to do that, because right now the Black community doesn't have power, and the police do not function in the interest of the poor and working class Black community. Black community control of the police is putting power back into the hands of the Black community and making the police accountable to the Black community.
Why should families of these victims receive reparations? That's my suggestion.
Okay.
Reparations are owed to the entire Black community, including to the families, because a crime has been committed against them. Their children have been robbed from them, have been stolen from them by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. And reparations, amongst other things, is material compensation paid to a group of people by an entity that has committed a crime against them. And there is no sum of money that could ever overcome the pain that has been inflicted on these families. But reparations are owed to these families and to the entire Black community for hundreds of years of oppression, of colonial oppression and state violence against the Black community that just had its most recent example in Pinellas County with what happened yesterday morning. Uhuru.
One more question, and I'm off Can the PLA speak to how the legal work of the Free Drowned Black Girl campaign is fighting to charged and jailed Quinton Bob and his murdering deputies.
Yes, so along with the legal work, there is an actual attorney over this case. His name is Aaron O'Neill. He's located in Washington, D.C. And we've actually last year filed the intent to sue the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. No, this year on March 31st, which was the 1-year anniversary of the murder of the 3 girls. So we're in the process right now of getting all the people that need to approve, and then we're move forward with suing the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department for the murders of Dominique, Laniyah, and Ashaunti. The legal work goes hand in hand with the political work and changing the narrative for everyone, not just in the city of St. Pete and Pinellas County, but around the world, because this story reached, international news, and the world was looking at St. Pete because of the murders of these 3 girls. And in turn, the same narrative of the Sheriff's Department was, promoted out there. So we, as the Just for the 3 Drowned Black Girls campaign and the Uhuru movement, had the responsibility to change this narrative that was, forced upon the people. And we actually conducted a tour where where Kunde Mwamvita, the mother of Dominique Battle, toured different cities across this country to, in light of sharing and deconstructing this entire narrative that was put out by the Sheriff's Department and the local media here, and that was adopted by even international media. And so, the legal work and the political work go hand in hand. And what Aaron is able to do come, the lawsuit and in court, it starts with what we're able to do and what we are able to win, on the grounds, because the people have to demand justice for Dominique, Laniyah, Ashaunti, Dejarae, Keontae, Jimmie, and it all starts with us and what we're doing right here. And that's what makes the legal work even stronger, because we know that the criminal justice system and the whole court system, does not spell justice for the Black community. It never has. So what we do here and what we demand on the grounds is what's going to further the legal work that Attorney Aaron is able to accomplish.
If there are no other questions from the media, I'd like to thank all the speakers today for coming out and speaking against this crime that has been inflicted upon the Black community, and also thank all of the people for coming out to this press conference. Uhuru.
Touch one! Touch all!